To decarbonize the transport sector and achieve net zero targets, electric vehicles, EVs, are being promoted as future transportation preferences. However, despite technological advancements, the adoption of EVs has not yet gained momentum. With improved tech play and battery innovation, EVs today have moved away from perception problems around performance to financial resistance. Now, strengthening the EV financing ecosystem is critical because high upfront costs and limited credit access for core user segments, especially the two-wheelers and three-wheelers buyers, and cautious lending by financial institutions are now bigger barriers to EV penetration. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Dayalani. Recognizing this challenge, major OEMs are introducing battery as a service option, which allows a user to pay for battery usage separately from the vehicle purchase, thereby reducing the initial financial burden on consumers while providing OEMs with a consistent revenue stream. Let's welcome Ashwin Shankar, founder of BatteryPool, to discuss how BatteryPool is helping make India's EV revolution more inclusive and financially viable. Hi, Ashwin, how are you doing?
I'm good, Priya. Thank you for having me.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you on our podcast today. And to be honest, this is the first time I'm coming across a battery as a service facility or feature that could help boost the sales of EVs and also, change the perception of people towards EVs. And probably we can witness more EV adoption. I mean, I'm sure our listeners would also like to know more about it and, how it exactly functions and what is something we need to keep in mind, which of course you will be sharing with us, Ashwin. So, let's get started by telling our listeners more about Battery Pool. We would like to know about Battery Pool, of course, about you as well, Ashwin. How has your journey been till date, and your role at the company? What triggered your interest to found this company?
Thanks, Priya. So, BatteryPool is a deep tech fintech platform that helps drive affordability of electric vehicles by making batteries more affordable. Right, as most of you know, that the main cost involved in an electric vehicle is around the battery pack. We're taking inspiration from how affordability was solved in other segments in the past. So, like prepaid cards for cell phones, your sachets for shampoos, right? We take lessons from there and we bring that into batteries. What we offer is a sachetized or a pay-as-you-go model for electric vehicle batteries, where drivers can pay for the battery packs as per their cash flows. They can pay for the battery packs daily, weekly, just like you would, buy prepaid cards for your phones. In the same way, you can pay for your EV battery packs. We manage over 2,500 batteries today in this model. We are present in about 10 cities across India, and we have over 1,500 drivers that use our battery services. My background, I'm an electrical engineer from Purdue and Stanford. I have experience building products in the energy space at Schlumberger, as well as building products for NASA. I also have experience working at a public policy think tank before starting off BatteryPool. We've been in this space from the very early days of the Indian electric vehicle industry. We've been around since 2019. So we've seen all the ups and downs that have taken place in the Indian EV ecosystem.
That's great, Ashwin. Thank you for sharing about the company and as well as about your journey. And, I'm really glad to understand about how the EV landscape is functioning and how Battery Pool is, offering an innovative solution so that people can shift seamlessly with in terms of EV vehicles adoption. With that foundation set in place, Ashwin, now globally this battery as a service model has been implemented in countries like Singapore and China, where battery swapping stations provide easy access to charge batteries, significantly reducing downtime for users. In Singapore, companies have standardized battery designs as well. It is empowering easy swaps that can save time and improve efficiency. So, this not only accelerates EV adoption, but also encourages the development of a comprehensive battery ecosystem. So, why does battery financing matter more than vehicle financing? And how does it effectively lower the total cost of ownership, especially for two-wheeler and three-wheeler drivers?
Sure. So, in an electric vehicle, a battery is about 50% of the cost of the vehicle, right? So the vehicle is literally just a, seat, a motor, and a battery pack. And the battery pack is about 50% of that value. Now, while these battery packs are like a large chunk of the electric vehicle value, they also tend to degrade, right? So the vehicle and the motor don't really have a short life; they don't degrade very quickly. The battery packs tend to degrade. That's where financing of the batteries and battery as a service type of models come into the picture. A, to make batteries more affordable. Remember, India's, especially the two and three wheeler segments, are cash flow constrained. Most customers are cash flow constrained, so they're not able to buy the electric vehicle or buy the battery upfront with cash available. So which is why if you're able to break that payment out into daily plans, weekly plans, monthly plans, something that aligns better with their cash flows, it can help drive adoption of these electric vehicles and their battery packs. Secondly, from a degradation standpoint, since these batteries have a certain life, customers prefer not to own the battery. They would want to rent the battery pack because so that like there's someone else who takes care of replacing the battery if it comes to the end of life. So yeah, these are the two main reasons why we feel like financing and specifically battery as a service work really well for the Indian customer, especially the two and three wheeler segment.
Quite a important and a powerful perspective, Ashwin. And I think, yeah, because most conversations around EV, this revolve around vehicle ownership. But I think that's what, we often tend to overlook the importance of battery brings in terms of EV vehicles. And I think, it's so interesting to see how battery financing directly impacts the total cost of ownership for the target audience that we discussed. I think with this approach and model, we can transform EV from a high commitment purchase into a more flexible and service like model. Moving ahead,
Correct.
so you mentioned about how these flexible plans, these monthly, weekly plans can help with more EV adoption. Now, if we talk about battery as a service globally, we discussed how it is implemented in Singapore and China. And, it is kind of increasing the EV adoption and wherein people are more comfortable using EV vehicles. Of course, this scenario has not been much reflected here in a country like India. So, battery as a service models are gaining attention. But how do you think these battery as a service structure enables circular life cycles from mobility use to second life energy storage?
Yeah, so you know how I mentioned the batteries degrade, batteries have a limited life, and customers are essentially renting that battery pack. They expect the battery as a service provider to replace the battery, once the battery degrades. So once the battery degrades, it doesn't degrade down to zero. It still has, it may not be a right fit for an electric vehicle use case, but it still has about 60-70% of its health left, which makes it a perfect product for energy storage applications. So along with electrification, we're also seeing a uptake in adoption of renewables, rooftop solar, even gensets are being replaced with backup batteries. That's where these batteries find a fit post an electric vehicle use case. So as a battery as a service provider, we make money, of course, from the first life of the battery pack by renting the battery and collecting these payments on a daily, weekly basis. But once the batteries come to the end of life, once they are degraded, we're able to take them and put them into a second life application, like in these energy storage use cases.
Pretty interesting, Ashwin, and thank you for sharing that. I think what's especially compelling about this is that batteries don't simply retire after mobility applications, but they are transitioning into second life roles like, energy storage or renewable energy backup. This not only extracts maximum value from the asset, but also significantly reduces environmental impact and raw material dependency. So Ashwin, before I move to the next question, since we have been talking about battery as a service and the kind of innovative solutions Battery Pool is offering, one quick question is how are your customers reacting to this approach? Especially in a country like India, though we are offering them a service that is easier for them to repay to pay the price of the vehicle. But overall, how has been the reaction and response of consumers of India?
So what we've seen is that this kind of a model works really well. I mentioned two and three wheeler drivers, but more so in the commercial vehicle segment, basically drivers that are using these two wheelers, three wheelers for fleet and commercial vehicle applications, right? So your last mile delivery workers, your e-rickshaw drivers, these are drivers who are not served the form of formal credit. So people like you and me might be able to access formal credit to buy the vehicle and battery, but this segment doesn't get access to formal credit. That and they want to buy the electric vehicle because they know that the cost of ownership is lower for their EV. So by creating these mechanisms, we're able to help them afford the vehicles. So to answer your question, we see a fantastic product market fit in the segment of last mile delivery vehicles, the segment of e-rickshaw drivers, where they don't have access to formal credit. And we are in some ways giving them that credit in the form of these batteries.
Great, glad to know about that, Ashwin. And I think the government is also, ramping up their efforts in terms of increasing their EV adoption. Because I was stating that Budget 2026 introduced duty exemptions for, EV components. So I think the budget positions transport as central to India's development strategy with sustained investments across urban mobility, railways, or even ports and inland waterways. Recognizing upstream vulnerabilities in electric mobility, the budget extends basic custom duty exemptions to capital goods used in lithium ion cell manufacturing for battery energy storage systems. Now, this move aims to localize storage production and reduce dependence on imports of a critical component. So, how significant is this impact of reduced cost for 2 to 5 kilowatts battery power packs for mass adoption?
So in this battery as a service, the maths behind it, the capex of the battery is what we are amortizing or what we are renting out over its life. So if you're able to reduce the capex of the battery pack, the battery as a service, the fee that we have to charge will also automatically reduce. So this helps, these exemptions help in reducing the cost of the battery pack by almost about 10-12%. And that can help reduce the battery as service fee that we are charging to our customers, which can help drive more adoption. So by and large, I think this has been the case for the last 7-8 years that the government has been consistently over budgets. Trying to push for adoption of electric mobility, trying to make India more secure in terms of its energy needs. In that direction, this is the latest announcement that will create a solid momentum for the electric vehicle space and more so specifically the battery as service offering that we are giving.
Quite an effective advantage that we are getting here, Ashwin. And what's interesting here that these policy decisions don't just influence companies like you or overall manufacturers. They're kind of reshaping the entire adoption curve of electric mobility. Just like you mentioned, because when we are able to make these battery packs affordable, we are essentially lowering the entry barrier for the most price sensitive segment of the market, like you mentioned two-wheelers or last mile delivery fleets and three-wheelers. And I think this plays a very important role in a market like India, where we still consider upfront vehicle cost as one of the important purchasing decisions in terms of buying any automobile for that matter. Great. My next question would be something on the technical or the tech standpoint of battery as a service approach. Now, battery management systems, they're very essential for the security, reliability, and optimal performance of these rechargeable batteries. And today, strong BMS solutions are becoming increasingly important as the demand for electric vehicles is also rising. Modern electric vehicles are increasingly coming with ADAS options, entertainment systems, improved lighting, but all these capabilities definitely give an edge to the user experience, but most BMS systems do not adapt to changing power demands. Now, this emphasizes the need for innovative solutions because it frequently leads to energy waste, a decreased driving range, and even battery degradation. So, predictive maintenance is often talked about, but I think rarely quantified. How does real time battery monitoring reduce downtime and stabilize driver incomes in shared mobility models?
So, as I mentioned, these battery as a service, we're giving it out to fleet and commercial vehicle drivers. So, the battery uptime or them getting a reliable battery, a battery that works, is super duper important for them to be able to make money. Their livelihoods run on that vehicle. It's imperative that they are getting batteries that always work. For us at Battery Pool, given that this is a reality of this market, we use technology to ensure that we're tracking every single battery pack that is in our pool, that is under our management, and not just track it, but also understand how soon or what is the likelihood of the battery failing. So if a battery is about to fail, then we take it out of circulation, we address the problems that come in, we get real-time alerts every 30 seconds from every single battery pack. And that allows us to better predict potential faults in the batteries. By doing this, we're able to, as I said, provide uptime to our segment, and this uptime helps our service differentiate from many of the other players in the market.
Great, Ashwin. Thank you for sharing that. And I think this is a really important perspective. And, it's important that the human impact behind these efficiencies. Because for drivers, specifically in shared mobility models, downtime isn't just a technical issue, it also leads to, lost earning opportunities. So when we are able to monitor and optimize the battery health, it creates income stability and predictability for drivers, which can ultimately help them strengthen the trust in the platform itself. And it's glad to know that, when we are predictively monitoring the battery, it is kind of becoming or also contributing to sustainable shared mobility.
Exactly. So my point here is that technology is not just for bells and whistles on the vehicle or the battery. It is very much critical to our offering, and is very critical for our end customers to be able to reliably earn livelihoods on it.
Right, definitely. Moving ahead, now this is something which is kind of out of the context, but I think it plays an important role in consumers adopting a mindset for purchasing an EV vehicle. Now, most of the users of the segment that we are talking about, they would usually go for EMI options and loans for financing, and the insurers are also adopting a wide variety of digital technologies to meet these ever changing demands. They are using big data, AI, blockchain, cloud, IoT, and I think even other technologies which probably we I'm not mentioned right now. These emerging technologies are helping insurers to reduce their costs, optimize business processes, and improve the overall customer experience. Now, AI driven underwriting is emerging as a key enabler. How do you think telematics and real world usage data from pooled batteries can help de-risk lending for informal and semi-formal operators?
So I talked about like how we get these alerts and how we get data from every single battery pack. AI does two things. One is that it helps us predict potential faults or potential problems in the battery pack and allows us to remove from circulation. But as you were referring to, AI also allows us to better underwrite customers. So the folks that we're giving the batteries to, this battery as a service to, we look at over 50 parameters to understand whether they are potential defaulters or they're customers who can properly pay for the battery packs. So we look at everything from the vintage of the vehicle to where they live, to how long they've been driving the vehicle, to what other jobs have they done in their career. We look at all these metrics, better understand how we can underwrite the risk around giving credit to this segment.
Yeah, definitely that makes a lot of sense. And if we go back to the conventional methods, lenders have often relied on static financial histories or paperwork or credit scores, and they kind of these systems just work on run highly viable businesses, but they lack documented financial trails. And I think AI is kind of changing the game here and redefining the entire trust. With all the data points, when they have the data points, the fingertips, they can evaluate the behavioral performance, understand the background, how consistently assets are being used, how efficiently operators manage energy consumption and repayment patterns. So I think that kind of helps. Even it raises an interesting broader implication as well. Where we are trying to, where mobility and energy data could become the new collateral in emerging economies and enabling access to capital without traditional guarantees.
Correct. So, like, I can give you an example. If we know that a driver is, paying for his battery pack daily, remember I mentioned how we collect payments on a daily basis. So, if you're able to collect payments from drivers on a daily basis, we know that he's earning money on a daily basis, right? So, tomorrow, like, if someone wants to lend to him for something like a TV or a fridge for his home, they know that they will be able to, or he will be able to pay for it. They structure it in this kind of a manner, this kind of a daily payment manner. So this payment habit that we're creating for drivers also acts as a sort of a pseudo CIBIL score or a pseudo credit score that can help him access multiple other financial products.
Yeah, definitely interesting, Ashwin, and thank you for sharing that example. I think that makes it pretty much clear for our listeners as well. Moving ahead, just want to, understand about the other side of the coin. Now, could your EV charging investment become worthless overnight? Because without proper interoperability, the answer might be yes. Now, consider this recent scenario when a major energy provider abruptly discontinued its EV charging management software last year. Businesses were given just 90 days to find alternatives before the charging stations became nothing more than expensive parking lots. This example underscores a critical vulnerability in today's rapidly expanding EV infrastructure market. That is the lack of true interoperability. For charging station operators who had prioritized this in their initial deployments, this market disruption represented a manageable transition. For others, it meant significant financial losses and business disruption. So the difference wasn't luck, it was pure strategy. So, interoperability is a recurring issue in EV infrastructure. Why are open battery standards essential to prevent vendor lock in and enable large scale battery pooling?
So I would, in fact, say that, or push back by saying that I don't believe that interoperability is needed. People try to push for interoperability, and there is a certain viewpoint that interoperability will create better adoption. But I think from a battery as a service, or a someone who's financing the battery pack, right? So someone's putting capital into the battery packs. In this case, it is battery pool. If we are giving this battery pack to a driver and he's allowed to charge the battery packs in some other swapping company's station. I do not have control over how those batteries are charged, not have control over how the batteries are swapped, how good the operations are at their location, right? So when someone is leasing or giving out an asset on rent, they would want to have complete security on that asset and they would want to have complete control on that asset. That is something that is not possible once you try to, if you try to bring about a interoperable use. We at least believe that interoperability is something that, from a customer standpoint, may be nice to have, but is not practical from a business standpoint.
Quite an interesting perspective, Ashwin. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you shared a different side or shared an insight which is different to what others believe, considering the interoperability aspect. And I think, yeah, that perspective also makes sense from a business standpoint of view.
Yeah, so to make it clear, see, interoperability might make sense for EV chargers, right? Where it's not a physical asset that is being given out, you're giving
Yeah,
out
yeah.
electrons, right?
Mhm.
But when you're giving out a physical asset, so Priya, if you were to rent your car or scooter to someone, wouldn't you want to know who you're renting it out to, where
Mm,
they take, whether they bring it back properly? You
yeah.
wouldn't want to be rented out to someone else, right? In a
Mm-hmm.
similar manner, like for whoever is investing in the battery packs, it's a physical asset that is being given to a customer. They would want to have full control over how, where a customer takes it, how he uses it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, definitely that makes sense. And it's important that we look at it from this point of view as well, Ashwin. Great. I think the potential of affordable EV financing goes far beyond just vehicle sales. I think we need to consider other aspects, and it also represents a strategic lever for economic empowerment, environmental resilience, and sustainable development. And for tier 2 and tier 3 cities, the next frontier of India's growth story, that is accessible battery and vehicle financing, could be the spark that accelerates equitable progress. Looking ahead, Ashwin, how do you see AI, finance, and battery infrastructure all coming together to reshape India's EV adoption curve over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. So at BatteryPool, what we're doing is we're bringing together finance, we're bringing together operations, we're bringing together technology. All that coming together is something that is unique and very innovative in the space. We believe that if someone wants to crack this model, someone wants to make it big in this model, it's imperative that all these ingredients come together properly. We are in the midst of a large scale EV adoption. I mentioned we've been in the space from the very beginning. So it's now that we see very good momentum in the right direction for electric vehicle adoption. If you talk to any commercial vehicle driver, it's a no-brainer for him to buy an electric vehicle today. He'll not even think of buying a CNG or a petrol vehicle. So, given all these things, we believe that the market is there, the ingredients are there, technology is evolving, finance is evolving, operations are evolving to make these offerings like ours better, faster, cheaper every day, which will only help drive adoption of these models in the future.
Definitely, Ashwin, and thank you for that insightful overview. And eventually, I think battery as a service might not be a global EV solution, but it's still playing an important role in the energy transition. If it's, flourishing in the right condition, you need dense urban areas, strong government support, and standardized battery designs. So instead of just trying to copy and paste the model, maybe we should learn from it because battery as a service effectively solves electrified personal mobility in urban areas specifically. Thank you so much, Ashwin, for taking out the time and effort to be on a podcast today and helping us understand that the battery as a service model has the potential to transform the automobile industry in India by addressing key challenges such as affordability and accessibility. And by decoupling the battery cost from the vehicle price, this model not only lowers the upfront financial burden on consumers, but also stimulates demand by making EVs more accessible. Thank you so much for your insights, Ashwin. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you, Priya.
Great. This is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion around battery as a service model and the kind of role it is playing in terms of increasing the EV adoption, specifically in a market like India. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and you can view all our previous episodes on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.